Hey everybody, it's Techno Funk Boy here. So I've been kind of wanting to do some videos on the Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars series. Edge of the Empire is the one that I really like to use. So we just released the first adventure to our actual play podcast. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. A lot of you have come just to learn about the dice, so we're going to jump right into that. But the very best thing about this game is also the hardest thing to learn, and that's the dice system. And a lot of people are intimidated by it. And what I want to tell people is, like, you know, don't be intimidated by it too much, because once you start playing, you're going to get it very, very easily. You're going to get it very quickly. It's just a matter of playing with it. And so if you have actually the physical dice, which I do, we'll play with these some. First of all, if you get the physical dice, get 2 packages. 1 package is not going to nearly be enough. But if you have the physical dice, there's a ton of dice rollers online. The one we use for our podcast is let me make sure I get this website right. It is dice.skyjedi.com. The reason we use that is, first of all, it keeps all your rolls game to game, as long as you're using the same name. But you can also, you know, all log in from different locations. So we play at different locations, and it lets us see our dice rolls. Roll20 does have a dice set, but you actually have to upgrade to the highest level of support for Roll20. And so it's sometimes a lot easier just to use one of these online dice rollers. And so the best thing I can tell you to do is to just do some rolling. It's just to get the dice and do some rolls and practice reading them. Because once you start seeing how the symbols you're looking it up and seeing how they work, and you're starting to to remove some and add some. And by the way, a lot of the online dice rollers will calculate it out for you and just give you a result. But the more you practice doing that, the more it's going to make sense. So we're going to do a quick overview of what all of these crazy symbols on here mean and how they work in the game. And so let's get rolling. So the first dice that we're going to deal with are the green dice. These are the ability dice, and this is just how good you are at a thing. If you have green dice, then you are good at a thing. When you have multiple green dice, that is you're better at a thing. If you're really good at a thing, you start adding yellow dice to it. These are proficiency dice. So you have an ability, you have a proficiency. Next, you have boost dice. These are situational. So if you're in a situation that you might have a bonus to your roll, that's where these come in. So you have a base ability, a base proficiency, and a situation that might boost your roll. These are all of the good dice. And you might roll nothing on a good dice, but you can't have a bad roll on a good die. So the opposite, the base dice for that you're going to use is the difficulty dice. This sets the difficulty of whatever it is that you are going to roll. So however many of these there are is how difficult the roll is. The challenge dice. These are kind of the opposite of the proficiency dice. These are just that extra level of difficulty. And like the boost dice, we have setback dice. And this is situational again, and it is what in the environment is might be causing something to be harder than it normally would be. So let's just say we're gonna get these directly from our character sheet. It's going to tell us what to roll on these. And so let's just say we're doing a thing, and we have 2 greens and a yellow. The difficulty is 3 purple. Now let's just say that we're trying to scale on the outside of a wall or something, and it's particularly windy. I might add a setback die to there to make that a little bit harder. So this is where we need to know what these actual symbols mean. The little explosion is your success. Very simple. Opposite of that is that little symbol, and that means failure. And these are opposite, obviously, of one another. And that is going to be your base roll. Whatever you're doing, you're counting those. Because whatever the player's trying to do, that's what's going to decide it. So, if we roll all of these, we're just going to put aside all of the other symbols for now. So none of those count, because we haven't gotten there yet. This is just flat blank, so that doesn't count. And this is something we haven't dealt with, and so we're not going to count that. We have 1 success. When we get to that, that is actually a success too, but this is what we're base trying to do. So whatever it is that we just tried to do, we succeeded. Now there are a few rolls that will have you count how many successes there were, like when you're using a weapon, but that doesn't matter. Whatever we tried, we succeeded. So now let's go to advantages and threats. This symbol is for advantage, and this symbol is for threat. And these are exactly opposite one another. An advantage is something good that happens that you weren't trying to do, but it happened anyways. And a threat is something bad that happens that you were not trying to do, but it happened anyways. And so here, this is actually a good example because we have 2 advantages, we have 3 threats. And so these cancel each other out, 2 and 2. We're left with 1 threat. So are you telling me that you can have a success and still have a threat? Absolutely you can. Absolutely you can. So let's go back to that example of this person is trying to scale the side of a building, and this means he succeeded. But what's the threat? Okay, now the threat is for the DM to decide. And so the GM is probably going to say, is like, okay, well, you succeeded, but you were spotted by a stormtrooper that was patrolling the top of the building. So that's your threat. Okay. If it had been an advantage, maybe you succeeded, and you also spotted some really interesting information through a window as you were crawling by. You spotted where the bad guys' plans were, something like that. And this is also scalable based on the number of advantages and threats you have. You could just use an advantage to give yourself a blue die on the next roll, but that's not nearly as much fun. We do that if we've run out of ideas or something, but it's more fun to add this kind of wild card element to your rolls, where your rolls are not strictly success and failure. Your rolls are actually going to be a lot deeper than that, and they're going to cause other things around you to happen. Now you can't turn. Let's just say we had 1 advantage here, but a failure. You can't turn that advantage into a success now, okay? And so you failed to crawl up the wall, Oh, well, my advantage is even though I slipped, I managed to keep a hand on it and I succeed. Well, no, that just meant that you succeeded. You just kind of did it clumsily. That's not really what we're going for. It's like, no, you still fell, but maybe you landed in a passing by speeder in the back seat and you didn't hurt yourself, something like that. That could be the case. But let's go back to we have this. We succeeded, but now we have a threat. So our stormtrooper saw us. Now we're going to go to triumphs and despairs. Now these only appear on these die. And so we actually rolled a triumph on here. This is the despair symbol. The triumph one. In this case we rolled a triumph. Now triumphs, you can think of them, and these the weapons do have like special uses of all these symbols, but just on regular skill rolls, think of a triumph as like an advantage, kind of on steroids, and a despair as this threat on steroids. It is something that really changes things. In this, the triumph does first of all act as a success, and so in this case you actually got 2 successes, and a despair would act as a failure. But we're also keeping those for other effects, and they do not cancel each other out. So you can actually have both of them. In this case, we rolled a triumph, and so we succeeded on our wall climb, but that stormtrooper on the roof spotted us. That is our threat, but we also got a triumph. And so the triumph needs to be kind of almost, I wouldn't say game breaking, but it needs to be, much bigger. You can have it like, if you're crawling on the wall, that stormtrooper at the top called for backup, and all of a sudden this door on the side of the wall going into the room where those plans were that you wanted, they just open up and another stormtrooper flies out at a jetpack, not even noticing you, but now the door's open. That kind of thing is what we're talking about with a triumph. It can be something very, very big. So in a different case, we might say like a success. If we're shooting a stormtrooper, we hit him with that success. The threat might be, as he's falling down, he manages to get the alarm off to alert the other stormtroopers. But the triumph is that as he's doing so, he leaves the computer open, giving you access to the path directly to your goal. That's the sort of thing we're talking about. Now, it can be both. It could totally be both. And so in our case, with everybody on the side of the wall, the triumph is the door opens, the stormtroopers come out, leaving you a path inside. But the despair is that the big bad evil guy also saw you, and he starts deleting files that you need. And now there's a time crunch. Now you can't wait. Now you got to go. So this is the sort of thing that we're talking about. Now, the last thing, and this is actually the first thing that you're going to use, but you don't use these very often, only at the beginning of the games, and these are your force die. And your players are going to roll these, and this is going to bring up, so you have a couple players that each roll, so there's a dark side and a light side. And so we get, you can use whatever you want. These are tokens that came with these dice. You can use whatever you want. And so these are the things that you can use throughout the game. The players can use a light side point to either upgrade one of their dice or if they're wanting the situation in a certain way. If they're running down the hallway and they're like, hey, I'd really like to knock over a potted plant. Can a potted plant be there? The GM might say, well, flip me over a light side and I'll put it there. That's the sort of thing. And the same thing with dark side, that you can kind of twist. If something is not written in stone yet, it hasn't been decided, you can actually twist things to your advantage by flipping it. Now, see, when you flip it, now it becomes a light side, so the players can use it, and the players use one. Now it's a dark side, and the GM can use it. Okay, we really do appreciate you tuning in. Now, I mentioned before that we just launched an actual play podcast using this system. And so this is something that if you are interested in this game, I would encourage you to watch. It's called, or listen to. It's called the Tales from the Rusty Speeder, and I'm the game master on it. And it's turned out to be a lot of fun. We are also streaming our live sessions over at twitch.tv/technofunkboy, and so follow us there if you prefer to watch, and we hope to see you there. And so I really do appreciate you tuning in. If you do like this sort of content, there's a couple more game systems that I want to do some reviews and how-tos for, but we are also walking through Dragonlance and kind of giving some ideas on running those games as well. And so, hit that subscribe button. Give me, if you don't mind, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Throw a comment in the comment box. That lets YouTube know that people do like this, and so then they recommend it more. And so I really do appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time.